What do you do when the person you trust most stands by, while someone else humiliates you, and that betrayal is only the beginning? Shattered vows, silent war. The moment he walked toward our table, I felt something crack inside me. Not fear, not confusion. It's just the kind of silent rage that comes when the truth you've been trying to ignore becomes impossible to look away from. We were at Vollmann's, an exclusive restaurant in the heart of Zurich. High ceilings, warm lighting, and the sound of a baby grand piano drifting through the air. A place where elegance lived in every detail. But to me that night, it felt like a cage dressed in gold. Across from me sat my wife, Celine. Her raven black hair cascaded in waves over one shoulder. Her wine-colored dress perfectly framing the grace she carried so effortlessly. But beneath the polish, her eyes were far away, cold, distracted. She'd been like that for months now. Late nights at the firm, whispered phone calls in the bathroom, sudden work trips. I knew something was off. I just didn't want to admit it. I had planned this dinner as a last-ditch effort. Maybe we could reconnect. Maybe peel away whatever wall had risen between us. But that hope shattered when a shadow fell across our table. A man in his mid-30s, tall, athletic, and oozing self-importance, stood over us like he owned the place. His tailored charcoal suit clung to him like it had been stitched by the gods. But no fabric could disguise the smirk on his face. "Celine," he said smoothly, ignoring me completely. "Didn't expect to see you tonight." Her breath caught. Her wine glass hovered in midair. "Nolan," she whispered. It wasn't just surprise. It was guilt, Nolan. I'd never heard the name before. But I could tell from the way he looked at her, and worse, the way she looked at him, that this wasn't a chance meeting. He extended a hand to her across the table, bold and deliberate. "Why waste your time with this suit?" he sneered. "Come dance with me. Then I'll show you what a real man can do." The restaurant hushed. Conversations paused. All eyes turned toward our table. Celine froze, her fingers still lightly gripped by his. I stood slow and deliberate, my chair dragging across the floor like thunder. "You have 3 seconds to let go of her hand," I said quietly. He turned toward me amused. Or what, that's when the sound came. The brutal, unmistakable crack of metacarpals snapping under pressure. Nolan howled in agony and collapsed to the floor, cradling his mangled hand, gasping. Celine jumped up, shocked. "Cade, what are you doing?" I crouched beside Nolan, my voice low and calm. "This is only the beginning. You chose the wrong man to provoke." He stared at me, sweating and pale. "You'll regret this." I stood and looked at my wife. "Let's go now." She hesitated, caught between shame and fear. But she followed, heels tapping behind me as murmurs rippled through the dining room like aftershocks. The car ride was silent, the kind of silence that strangles. Back at the house, I parked in the garage and shut off the engine. "Talk," I said without looking at her. Celine shrank in the passenger seat, her voice cracking. "Cade, I don't know what to say." "You can start with the truth," I said, turning to face her. "Who is he?" How long? Tears welled in her eyes. But my sympathy had died months ago. 6 months, she said finally. "It started 6 months ago." I nodded slowly, more numb than angry now. "So, what was tonight, a surprise ambush? Or were you hoping he'd mark his territory in front of me?" he gasped. "I didn't know he'd be there. I swear." "Don't insult me, Celine," I snapped. "You knew?" "I saw your face." She broke into sobs, covering her face as if her shame would buy forgiveness. But I wasn't here to hand out pity. The next morning, as Zurich's skyline glowed against the rising sun, I sat in my office, overlooking the city. I wasn't planning revenge out of pettiness. I was planning it because betrayal deserves consequences. I started with Nolan. In less than 48 hours, I had his life mapped out. My contacts in finance pulled strings. His perfect online persona. Fast cars, private jets, custom watches, was a fantasy held together with fraudulent loans and debt. He was a parasite, and I was the cure. With a dossier of financial crimes, lawsuits, and past coercions in hand, I reached out to an investigative journalist known for dismantling reputations in one column. The day of the annual Zurich Elite Gala, Nolan was exposed right there in front of Switzerland's most powerful. The headlines hit like a bomb. Financier Nolan Bishop exposed in high-profile fraud scandal. His bank accounts were frozen, said seized. His name became poison. Meanwhile, I gathered everything I needed on Celine. Screenshots, call logs, emails, clean, quiet portfolio of infidelity. When I handed her the divorce papers, she looked at me like a drowning woman. "You don't have to destroy me," she whispered. "You destroyed us," I replied. Our prenup ensured she walked away with nothing. She tried to contest it until I dropped the proof on the table. She didn't show up at the next hearing. Months passed. Celine's friends stopped calling. Her invitations dried up. Her family went radio silent, too ashamed to be associated with her. Nolan vanished from the public eye. Rumors said he was in Bali, hiding from creditors. And I thrive. My business expanded into new markets. The house grew quiet, but peaceful. My reflection no longer carried shame, only resilience. At a charity benefit months later, I found myself talking to Isla Duval, a historian from Vienna. She was sharp, genuine, and refreshingly uninterested in wealth. We spoke for hours, the weight of my past slowly dissolving with every laugh we shared. That night, standing alone on the balcony of my apartment, I looked over the city that had once seen my humiliation. Now it saw my rebirth. I raised a glass to the stars. Betrayal cuts deep. But I used the blade to carve a new life. Because some stories don't end with pain. Some begin there and rise higher than ever imagined. Sometimes the deepest betrayals clear the way for the most powerful transformations. Don't just survive, Rice.